1,000 jobs at risk, hundreds of millions in severance liabilities, and entire sectors from sugar, forestry, security services staring down collapse. And of course, the choice before Eswatini could not be more stark: regulate or prohibit. Business Eswatini insists that outright prohibition is reckless, unconstitutional, and contrary to international best practice. Instead, they urge smart regulation that is aligned with ILO Convention 181, protecting workers without collapsing enterprises. Will Parliament listen before the country walks into a jobs and business catastrophe? Let's talk to the Chief Executive, the man at the center of the storm, Inhati Dlamini, the Chief Executive of Business Eswatini. Good morning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
And thank you to your viewers for tuning in to this very important conversation.
I appreciate that you're smiling when I just premised our conversation with such concerning numbers. But I suppose sometimes you just have to laugh within the storm.
Yes, you have to laugh through this.
Your report as Business Eswatini, that is, projects 20,000 direct and indirect job losses. That is, if triangular employment is banned. Very, very sobering given the context of our unemployment crisis in the Kingdom of Eswatini. I think that for me, that's what struck me the most. But put this into perspective for us. Just how devastating would this be for Eswatini's already fragile labor market?
Look, it's not just only sobering. It is very, very troubling.
Right.
This is an evidence-based research work that was highly rigorous in our search for the data and information. It involved talking to the players themselves involved in this business across the whole country, across all the cities that they are based in. And a very, very, very troubling outcome. Yes, we are looking at losing over 20,000 jobs.
That's a lot.
20,000. And then on top of that, there are 8,000 indirect jobs that could be lost by this prohibition. You are well aware, the bill as it stands right now before Parliament, you can tell that there were good intentions in crafting it.
Right.
And we want to really congratulate government for that. And then somehow, maybe they lost the plot on Section 129. I don't know what happened.
Right.
Because if you read Section 129, Clause 1, it says, I prohibit this thing with immediate effect. And then Section 129, Clause 2, it says, by the way, in 12 months' time, none of these businesses should exist. Now imagine a private agency that's hiring 600 permanent employees. And he probably holds a contract to supply labor for the next 5 years. The law says, within 12 months, I don't want you here. I want all 600 people who will have been employed for the next 5 years full time. Send them home. And then it says, Section 129, Clause 3. And then it says, by the way, if the companies would like to hire people, you give this triangular employees the first preference. It's illegal, that too. It's just illegal.
Let's look at the sectoral realities, because the report highlights sugar, it highlights forestry, it highlights security, and they emerge as what we can call ground zero for this impact,
yeah,
right?
Ground zero is
Why are these industries especially exposed, and what ripple effects would prohibition have on the communities and the households that depend on them?
In fact, you've nailed it right. I think primary industries will be forestry, agriculture, sugarcane, and then manufacturing. Because because of the nature of their business, they really take a lot, I mean hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of contract labor. Why? Because some of them are seasonal. For instance, sugarcane, you only harvest it seasonally.
Right, right.
You probably need labor for 4 months, which means as a company you cannot hire 3,000 people permanently because you don't harvest the whole year.
Yeah, yeah.
So you need contract labor for that, and it's been working well. The whole world uses this model, and then you have forestry. Same scenario. If you go look at their operations, they work almost along, akin to sugarcane companies, some manufacturing. So you're talking about thousands and thousands of people who are employed under the triangular employment. By the way, including some of my relatives. And I keep watch. They make sure that they don't get abused. And I appreciate that because if they were not under the triangular employment, they become my problem. Uncle Nati, give me that. Uncle Nati, give me that. But thankfully, we have this, what you call triangular employment, which also gives, because most of it is sometimes young people, it gives them professional experience. It gives them the opportunity that after working there, they have a shot at getting proper full-time employment elsewhere.
100%. And the financial domino effect then comes into play there because, this report warns of a looming liquidity crisis with over 250 million emalangeni in severance liabilities. That is what, 68% default risk among employers.
Yeah.
It's just quite crazy. How close are we, in your view, to a systemic financial shock if this law passes indeed?
If it were to pass today, and God forbid, it will be tantamount to taking a gun and shooting ourselves in the foot, and they'll say, what for? Because, like I'm talking about, we're not talking about just tens or scores of people here, we're talking about thousands.
Yeah.
And then you tell a company that's holding, for instance, 5-year contract to supply labor, you say shut down now. One thing they tell you says, by the way, if I let them go within the next 12 months, I haven't saved enough money for severance pay, which means I will default.
Sure.
I will send them home empty-handed. And if you look at the debts these employees have with banks, which means they will default on their loans. And if they default on their loans, banks will experience what they call NPL, non-performing loans. The domino effect of this in the economy is unfathomable. It's totally unimaginable just because of one legislation gone wrong. That's what we're talking about. And we are talking about millions and millions here which are involved, on top of potentially thousands and thousands of job losses as well.
Yeah, and it's about 28,000 if we look at direct and indirect.
And indirect is 28,000.
Yeah.
And now imagine a situation like this. Sometimes, it helps to do things in context. You have 1.2 million people in this country. You have around 160,000 people in total in the whole country. You're talking about in informal employment, which means probably 110,000 people in the private sector. Government hires 45,000. Okay, that's 160,000. The question is, what's the other million doing in this country? You will argue and say probably 350,000 are still in school, but that still leaves 700,000 people. What do they do when they wake up in the morning? You can say some of them are in formal employment, yes. Some of them are doing side houses here and there. But you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people unemployed. And on top of that, you come with a legislation to add another 28,000 on top of that alarming figure of unemployment. 36% in the whole country unemployed. 58% of young people unemployed. And you come with Section 129, says, I will make this situation worse. And I know for sure government, it wasn't their intention, honestly, and I know that they're sincere. But on this one, they're just so sincerely wrong. And we said, when we conducted the study, we could have kept it quiet. But we said, no, let us go out there and warn people and warn government. And I'm sure they will listen and say, that wasn't the intention. Let us relook at this and reconfigure it in line with your research. And that's what we're praying they'll be doing.
Yeah, and I think the numbers that you have just articulated are even more troubling. And like you said, sobering is one thing, but troubling. Once we give the context that nearly 60% of our young population is unemployed, and then we take away 28,000, give or take, more jobs, that is even more troubling. But I think Business Eswatini is emphatic with the statement, regulate, do not prohibit. And I want us to get into that, because what I want to understand is what would be a balanced sort of regulatory framework look in practice, and how does aligning with the ILO Convention 181 offer as a safer alternative?
You're really spot on that. And please allow me, because your viewers they need to understand this.
Right.
And you mentioned ILO Convention 180 now. I want to talk about that. But there used to be another convention called ILO Convention 96, which was passed in 1951, right?
Sure.
The country, the Kingdom of Eswatini, ratified Convention 96 passed in 1951. They have not ratified Convention 181. Convention 181 was passed in fact, 19th of June, 1997. We, as employers, we were in Geneva. We voted for that Convention 188. Government was there. They voted for Convention 188. The labor movement, they were there. They voted for it. It seeks to repeal Convention 96, which the country ratified. And now the country is yet to ratify Convention 181. Under Convention 181, the ILO says, we are aware that the progress being made in business and the landscape has changed dramatically to the point that we need private agencies, labor agencies, in order to meet the demands of business. They are permissible. But we are saying, please, can you regulate them? Can you license them?
Right.
And in your licensing, can you put performance standards? Can you ensure that these labor agencies, they ensure that employees have equal rights, they have collective bargaining within that. And by the way, we love it, because just in case there's a rogue employment agency, we will be the first as Business Eswatini to call them out. And we like that. We're saying, government, Convention 181 is providing the answer for you. Why don't you follow it instead of following a law that's from 1951, which will, by the way, be abrogated in 2 years' time, which means it will be repealed completely. And yet we're taking a legislation to Parliament that actually honors the tenets of Regulation 96, which will be repealed. Why take our beautiful country backwards when the whole country is going that way?
Yeah. It's interesting indeed. The regional and international lessons therein, because Namibia tried prohibition.
Yes.
Its courts struck it down, right?
Yes.
South Africa regulates with joint liability.
Yes.
What lessons should Eswatini's lawmakers be drawing from these experiences? They are pretty right next to us. They are not far.
Yeah, you've got your facts in your fingertips. Thank you very much. You mentioned Namibia. In fact, Namibia, it was a court case against employment agency versus the government of Namibia. It happened in 1999. The government of Namibia lost the case in the Supreme Court because one of the predicates of that loss was because of Convention 181, which had been passed in Geneva on the 19th of June, 1997. You see, so this happens 3 years apart.
Right.
They say, no, you cannot disallow these agencies to function on the basis of ILO Convention 181, which was passed on the 19th of June, 1997. So from then, they are permissible. Right. They're doing the same thing, regulating them. South Africa, same scenario. They are regulating them, ensuring that they comply with the rules. What's the other country that you mentioned? That Botswana, same situation. So we have countries that we can look up to see how it works for them, and we think it works well. It creates jobs, and yes, the jobs are flexible, but it allows the youth to gain much needed work experience through these arrangements as their path to full-time employment. It works well, but you have to regulate it. Trust me, if there was an agency exploiting people here, like I told you, I've got relatives in all these agencies. Trust me, I'll be the first one to come in Russia to call them more public and say, look who's doing to my own cousin.
Right.
Yeah. So I've got relatives, and I'm thankful the opportunity they provide to our relatives to gain work experience, and it's working well. And I think our government should really reconsider just only that section 129, clause 1, 2, 3. The rest of the legislation looks good. And we say congratulations to government.
I do want to say, given the context of the mandate of Business Eswatini, I suppose every Liswati that stands to be a victim of such developments becomes your cousin, if you really think about it. But let's look at the workers' lens.
All my cousins, indeed.
100%. I mean, critics argue, and this is the workers' lens now, they argue that triangular employment exposes workers to exploitation. And I think we've established that in our conversation this morning. How do you ensure that under regulation now, workers' rights are not just preserved, but they're also strengthened? I think that's critical.
I think that's a running mantra for years. You've heard that these agencies exploit, and it's been repeated so many times. And sometimes when you repeat an untruth so many times, it becomes perceptibly the truth. No, it's not true.
Yeah.
There is no exploitation. You take away, by the way, even if you can say you ban it today, it's over. Trust me, people are desperate out there. They will be coming under the table to make arrangements. I need the job on the sugarcane field. I need a job with the forestry.
100%.
Which means now we are opening the room for more exploitations. Under agencies which are regulated, and the state oversight over those agencies, in fact, workers are more protected under that arrangement or an arrangement which is just running rampant without any state control. Again, I would say no. It's wrong. I've heard it said so many times, but it doesn't mean because it's been said so many times it makes it true. It's patently false.
Right. I mean, you've called prohibition unconstitutional. Section 32, subsection 1 of Eswatini's constitution guarantees the right to engage in lawful trade. How serious is this legal contradiction, and do you expect it to be tested in court?
Yeah, in fact, there is, it is section 32, I think clause 1 of 2005, a constitution, the supreme law of the land. Yes, it says everyone has a right to engage in lawful trade and business, as long as it's legally registered. And we talk about here, we talk about employment agencies.
Yes.
They are legally registered. They have a right, and no one has a right to come and stop them. So if the law passes as it is, not only are you opening up a legal jeopardy for Parliament, you're opening up a legal jeopardy for the whole country. Because trust me, on the basis of our constitution, government would lose the case. And damages will have to pay to this myriad of these agencies, millions that they would have lost in foregone income and business and contracts that would have been stopped. It could amount to millions. And we are saying, why would you open this country to this legal jeopardy when there is another viable alternative, which is Convention 181? we all voted for it. The unions voted for it. Government did. Can't we just follow it and fix this problem?
Right.
Yeah, this problem is fixable.
Right.
It's not hard, but it just needs political will, and we are willing to assist government to get the ball over the line.
It just needs political will and dialogue. And I want to take from that because I suppose government appears determined to push ahead. And what is your message to Parliament today? And how do you propose constructive dialogue that will protect workers while also allowing businesses to survive?
Look, I would say to Parliament, they represent constituencies who will be affected by this bill.
Yeah.
And I would beg them to read through this carefully and see the implication of this legislation going forward if they say aye to it. And they can say that. But all they need to do for now is accept the whole legislation. But when they get to Section 129, Clause 1 and 2 and 3, just delete it and put that agencies will be permissible under ILO Convention 181, which means we'll have a perfect law that everybody accepts. It protects the jobs from their constituency level. Everybody's happy. Businesses will thrive. Young people will continue to be employed to gain experience to this arrangement. We really humbly beseech them, delete Section 129. It's not in the best interest of this country. It's not in the best interest of the development agenda of government. It has to be deleted.
And I suppose your parting shot is, again, regulate, do not prohibit. And again, I suppose everything that you've just said right now in terms of, what then this does in terms of modernizing our Eswatini's labor market, what it does for, attracting investment, so to speak, as well as ensuring long-term competitiveness. There's a lot of benefits there.
There's a lot of benefit, yeah. Like I said, Convention 181, it modernizes the whole business landscape. Right. In keeping with the ethos of the ILO, to which we are a party. So it also opens room for the creation of more jobs, especially flexible jobs. And the potential victims of not adopting that, you will be really destroying the youth, especially the women, because they're cleaning services in sectors. I've made an example with security. I have a private security in my house, Karalet. They look after my house at night. They've been doing that for the past 20 years. If this law comes into effect, you have to close Karalet. They say, I must hire the guard. I'm not going to hire the guard.
I suppose let's make examples of those, jobs that will be lost. So, guard alert, our sisters who clean.
Okay. I'll make an example, and I'll make one which is more personal. The service I use, guard alert. There's a guy who comes in at 6 o'clock at my house. I feed him by 7. He also goes to sleep. I'm used to it. 18 years, I pay for that service. But I can put cameras on my house. If this legislation were to come to place today, I'll get rid of the guard because I cannot hire him. I don't know what the gadgets they use, who they talk to. I don't have the infrastructure. I'll say, so go away. I'll put cameras on my house. I can monitor those cameras on my phone, right? Good. And you go to a forestry a company, and it says, okay, we are taking out 5,000 jobs. I'm going to Germany. I'm going to automate all my processes anyway, because you are forcing me to do that, which means all those jobs lost, they're never coming back. So you talk about the cleaning. We have huge buildings here in Baban, and we have these ladies who come in at 4 a.m. to clean all the buildings. That's a triangular labor. And you are saying to me, no, you don't want that. Each office must have their own cleaner. Can you imagine how many offices in one building? Thousands. We think people can do that. Again, it's just totally unworkable. Cleaning services, security guards, and it's thousands of those people we hire. Some of them we don't even need, but we do it because it's part of contributing to the employment situation.